Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here with some character reviews for the new anniversary units. A little late to this, but I was really waiting for two things in particular. One, I wanted to see how the new X jobs truly affected the balance of the game, but also number two, some of the vision cards with their party buffs, the elements. I wanted to see how that affected the balance too. So before coming into real, conclusions and analysis, I just wanted to kind of let the water settle first. But now I have a fairly good handle on things, and I'm really excited to do these reviews for you. So first off, the unit we were all waiting for, the most meta unit that we're going to see for quite some time here. Yuna, brand new healer to the game, absolutely fantastic. So let's jump into what we're going to talk about. It's really the character overview, general thoughts. I'm going to do some character statistical analysis based on her stats, and then talk a little bit about the class and job, talk about how healing is calculated, because it's a major part of her kit, and then obviously the normal Esper, vision card, and weapon synergies. So, jumping right into the general overview, she's a brand new light unit, healer primarily. I love it because the light cast of characters has had a lot of sustain and defensive buffs and protection, but not enough so to overpower the offensive capabilities of the dark units. Well, now that they have a legitimate healer and source of sustain, that they can really do their job the way they want to. She's a Summoner of Spira, Green Mage, and Kotodama wielder for the job, so interesting little mix there. We're going to get into those soon. Weapons are a rod, and then hat cloth and accessory for equips, with a move of 3, jump of 1. Pretty standard for base movement overall. That being said, in terms of other resistances, she's weak to all physical kinds. That's kind of standard for magic users. 15% strength against actual other magic users. And then resistance ailments, 50 to silence, 50 to charm. Both are valuable, but that being said, paralyze, confusion, disable, all of those are still right for hitting her with, so really also a valuable way to potentially counter her if need be. That being said, the resistance is pretty standard. Missile obviously has its place as the strongest weakness, but you're not going to see a ton of that, at least not right now. Just general thoughts, incredible healing potency. It's the highest, most incredible amount of healing we've seen in the game for a few reasons we'll get into soon, just as it pertains to her magic stat and her healing potency overall. Extremely high magic damage potential for that same reason. Really high magic stat corresponds at really high magic output. Many sources of guaranteed hits, so that's a nice thing in her kit. One of the reasons, you can't just bring an evade comp to the party and she's going to just fuck that shit up all day. Fantastic addition to the light units, kind of glossed over that in the intro, just as it pertains to adding more sustain to what they can do. Ally, re-raise, one of the sources of that sustain. Incredible new addition to the game, where formerly it was really just the zombie mask from Halloween Ryu, and even then it's a TMR ability, and it's only on the unit themselves. This has a whole bunch of creative and flexible ways to use it. And then she's bulky, and I use that term, quotes, for a magic user. Just from an HP perspective, her health pool is absolutely out of the charts, particularly when you pair her with the way she should be paired in terms of Esper and Vision Card and whatnot. So, getting into the stats overview, forgive me for the animation here, that's evasion. These are the top 5 evade units right here, and if you want to know how the metrics here truly fit into the game, link above or below for my accuracy and evasion guide that I've done. So these are the top 5. You can see the average right there, and Yuna is just way at the bottom in terms of evasion. That's actually the bottom of the list. So not an evade unit. Her luck stat just isn't high enough. It's a pretty bad luck stat overall. Agility, she's fast as fuck though, so that's going to be really helpful overall once you kind of build her out. But that being said, she could certainly be a character in an evade comp, but she's not doing any of the evasion. In terms of accuracy, so these are the top 5, total accuracy with passives here. Average top, middle here at 147. Where is Yuna? At the bottom. That's literally the bottom of the list. But although accuracy might be a legitimate weakness, she has a bunch of critical guaranteed hits in her kit, which obviously accuracy doesn't really matter. So that weakness is kind of counterbalanced by some of her, her innate kit, which is a good thing for her, if that makes sense. The dexterity is average, so it means she's average to proc those critical hits potentially, but obviously certainly could be boosted as well. And then just speaking purely from a magic stat standpoint, so I wanted to compare her to Sakura, who's one of the best mages in the game, by and large. So just off the board and the job, Yuna already is at 481 magic compared to Sakura's 342, so incredible advantage right out of the gate. And if you were to build them, with the, dare I say, whale build, the best build you could possibly put on them, just for a magic metal, let's say, or damage output, Yuna ends up at 1327, Sakura 1064, so that's a pretty huge disparity in magic stat, which is obviously going to help Yuna's healing, as well as her offensive output, which we'll see soon. So, the passive abilities, she's got 2 that are kind of similar overall. So, Mooncrest and Magic Level Up really, really similar that they boost magic. I prefer Mooncrest just for the healing power as well, and I'll talk about the math behind how that stat gets computed in a second. In terms of like magic resistance, so Savior's Protection gives magic resistance, but I prefer Dark Spirit's Blessing also gives magic resistance. I'm sorry. It gives SPR, which is a form of magic resistance. It's basically equivalent. 12% magic resistance, the same as 12 SPR in the broad scheme of things. But also Dark Resistance, which hedges that weakness elementally as well. Emerald Echo is okay. Not my favorite for it. I honestly prefer Oath to the Faith. So this decreases activation time of 200, supremely critical when you consider the mage that casts spells the fastest, obviously has the chance to potentially kill things faster, but more importantly, healing spells like Kiraga that have a cast time, she's going to be able to cast them quicker, which means your teammate may not die in the process of the cast time. So I really love, me personally, Mooncrest and Oath to the Faith. Those are my two favorites. So the healing power up, the healing potency up that you see there, let's talk about what it is. Take an ability of hers like Kiraga. You see this 210 times. Well, this stat actually has a place. So this is a calculator made by Fall of Green or Meow or it's one of those two. And long story short, you take your total magic stat. So this is Yuna's that we calculated a couple slides ago. The multiplier of the skill ability, so 210 in this case. And then there's a little bit of a faith equation that goes on where higher faith means you get more healing and higher faith means you can give more healing. So let's assume that Yuna's at 97, which she should be, and let's assume her target is at 50, which is average for your regular DPS. Long story short, she'll do 4,095 healing based on her magic stat here and that faith combination. If you were to give her Mooncrest and increase that healing potency by 20, long story short, that 2.1 becomes 2.3, so you essentially add 20. So this should really say 230, not 210. But all in all, you end up healing for roughly 300 more. But again, this is a 50 unit 50 faith unit. Make them a higher faith, they're going to get a fuck ton more healing. It's going to scale much, much faster. So long story short, this is one of the reasons why she heals a hell of a lot, in addition to the counter abilities here. So Aeon Bond is an absolute must for upgrade and for equipping. I'm not even going to talk about the others. This is like probably what makes her the most broken out of all, because 30% chance to proc, it not only increases her healing power by an additional 30 for these turns, but it's also a self-heal, and since her health pool is so big, number one, it makes it hard to chunk her down in one hit or two hits. Number two, she has the chance in that process of being hit to heal herself, and because her magic stat is so high, because her faith is so high, she ends up basically healing herself to full if this procs. It's incredibly useful, absolute must-have to equip. Dispel Counter and Steal Ephemeral Form, they're okay, not nearly as good. That's not what makes her so meta in that sense. In terms of the main job here, so I like it because essentially she's got 2 offensive abilities and 2 healing abilities. Both are, she have 2 of them are instacast, 2 of them have a cast time, which is kind of cool. So like Prey and Kiraga, really great abilities overall with some good range. But Prey is instant, Kiraga has a cast time, obviously a little more potent to offset that. Sonic Wings, really awesome ability here, plays with some CT count as well. It's an instant spell, but enhanced Holy, way higher modifier, but it has a cast time, incredible range and height, and obviously once you enhance it for the Dark Killer, really valuable in that matchup. She has Re-Raise, which will target the highest hate on your team at the time of casting, so this is an incredibly useful ability. And then Full Life as well. So long story short, you essentially have 2 get-out-of-jail-free cards with your teammates, and if 2 of them die, she has 2 sources to revive them, which is absolutely out of this world when you talk about sustain. In terms of the sub job, never look at it. My person, I've done it. No, Raise is terrible. It's a waste of a turn, and Kurata is just not even worth its salt when you have those 2 other abilities. So, next. Green Mage. This job is actually a super valuable job. The problem is we haven't had many characters that can really utilize it, or popular characters that can utilize it. So with Yuna being really popular, the Green Mage job actually has a spot where, if you're going to see a lot of light teams and a light meta, Bar Light, number 1, is going to be useful in giving yourself extra elemental protection. De-Shell and De-Protect, a little more hard to control in an AI setting, but theoretically, these are incredibly powerful abilities where you essentially decrease SPR and defense by 25. That's super valuable because if you can make that go negative, you're going to absolutely fuck the enemy team up in terms of their resistance stats. And then Apparel, same idea. If you're running a team and you have multiple element users on that team, they're all going to benefit from Apparel. It does damage. It's got some, good AoE potential here, and 25% decreased elemental resistance is pretty strong. That means, you know, your overall attack increased by 25%. So if you have questions on how that's calculated, I also have a damage calculation video. It's going to be either a link up top or a link below. Definitely worth checking out as well. So great sub job overall. Probably a little bit better when you can manually control it, but it's still super valuable. And then Kodadama Wielder, this one's not bad. This one is just more offensively oriented, in my opinion. So if you've seen her kit, one of the things you might have noticed, she doesn't really have any self-buffs. So nimble movement is one of the few, like, turn 1, turn 2 self-buffs that she has, other than re-raise and whatever TMR you put on her. So this class is good for filling in that empty slot, if you will. Obviously helps her mobility, as long as she doesn't go too far into the battle. But other than that, it's really, like, different kinds of offensive-oriented attacks. So, you know, she's got another guaranteed hit here, which she doesn't really need, but Holy only has 3 casts, so technically, you know, this could come in valuable if you have a long drawn-out battle. Bursting Light I like a lot because it's a good AoE and it's got a ton of magic potency. So, you know, if I'm equipping Kotodama Wielder, it's typically to use Bursting Light and have access to it. But other than that, you know, these, it's got its spot, but it, you know, little niche how many of these you're actually going to use. In terms of the limit break, it's a decent limit break in terms of range, just on, you know, the AoE side of things, but 100% chance to hit. That's really what makes it valuable from an AoE perspective. So, if, you know, you have a group of evade units that ever clumped up, like, see you later. But that's it. Other than the guaranteed hit chance, there's really nothing special about it. It can hit pretty hard. 200% is nothing to, you know, joke about, considering her magic stat. But that's really the utility, is the guaranteed hit. In terms of TMR, absolutely incredible TMR. This is, like, fucking fantastic. And highly recommended to put resources to maxing the equipment level of this, because not only is it a great in terms of stats for a cloth, where it's 358 HP, 10 defense to help her against potential physical attackers, which she's weak against those physical weapon, you know, resistance types. Critical Void helps a lot, just so she doesn't get chunked down, like, for massive amounts of damage. Particularly when you talk about, like, a potential Tidus meta, where Tidus does a ton of critical hits, like, could potentially burst her down quicker. Well, this is going to help her avoid that. But the TMR skill is really where things shine, where she doesn't have any Protector Shell in her kit, but this is a source of it. And this Restore HP for allies is the same strength as her Kiraga, and it's instant. So if you have a couple of teammates that take damage early on in the fight, she goes, you know, walks right next to him, heals him to full, and gives Protect and Shell super important, particularly because Protect and Shell are typically, you know, separate abilities, so you have to either choose which one you want your healer to use and hope they use it correctly, whereas this kind of does both at the same time, so really valuable. And in terms of the master ability, so increased area resistance here of 10, really valuable. It's just particularly when you talk about magic attacks, a lot of them are AoE by nature, so she's just going to be able to take a little bit less damage because of that innately, which helps, you know, her survivability, which she's already got a ton of. The Vision Card synergies, let's be real, Bahamut, like, that's the guy, that's it. There are other good Vision Cards, don't get me wrong. This Esper and Vision Card, though, I know it's double cost to level the Vision Card, and I know it's a rare drop rate to get the Esper, and it's a ton to, like, level it up 3 levels, because you have to awaken it twice, and, you know, all the materials, but abso-fucking-lutely worth it, no questions asked. It's by far the best Vision Card you can put on her, and is one of the, you know, main other reasons why there's a light meta per se. So the stats on this card are absolutely fucking out of this world. 4 agility, 5 SPR, increased luck, good magic stat, ton of HP. And then it's going to give her an additional 15% HP, increase the magic attack potency. For your party, it's going to increase magic by 50% to her and the party, agility by 8% to her and the party, and then like individual unit attack resistance. So not only does she have 10 area resist, she's got 20 unit resist. Like, it's absolutely fucking nutty what this card will do to your light comps, so cannot underestimate it enough. The second one I love, Trousseau. Obviously, it's a super potent magic attack card, and in a magic meta that's going to help you a lot. The dark resist of 10% is nice when you consider that, you know, the counter to light is technically the, you know, a dark team, and the magic stat here is absolutely fantastic. The rest of them, they're pretty standard. I don't particularly have a strong case for any of them. They all have their, you know, place in terms of good for magic users. Blossoms in the Dark is one of them, but same could be said for Ramu, Shiva, Solidus, and Envious Magician. Now, Solidus in particular is awesome because there is a light party effect on it. I don't have it written down here, and as I'm talking, it's off. I don't remember, but I'll have it in the video, obviously. These cards all have their place for good magic users, so, you know, use them as you will, but really and truly the best cards you can put on there is Bahamut. When you talk about the Espers, same thing. This Esper is so fucking nutty compared to the others. It literally power creeps everything in the game already. So, Bahamut, HP of 1261. Another reason why her HP gets so high. It's like well over 300 HP higher than all the other Espers. Agility of 19, which is tied for Odin for highest in the game. Magic stat of 113, which is well above any other magic on the Espers. And the board here, I had to literally add extra lines to fit in the other things you could like equip on her, because everything here is super valuable in terms of magic attack, magic stat, human killer, magic resist, critical rate. Like, you can build this however you want. It's fucking insane. And not that the others aren't good. The others are still fine. They're still really good. Diabolos runs the risk of having the light down 10%, so in the light meta, this might hurt her, you know, maybe more than it offensively helps her. And these are good Espers, but like Bahamut, you can tell just by looking, by and large, is just out of this world better. Literally every single stat on this Esper basically is better than every other Esper. The board's way more versatile, and no weaknesses or strengths elementally, but it gives you also 25% immobilize resist, so, you know, take what status resist affects, well, you know, while you can. So, all of these have their place. Don't get me wrong, they're good. Just Bahamut is by far the best. In terms of weapon optimization, so there's really 3 rods you can choose from. The Prunus Lamina, the Magistral Rod, which just came out for her, and the Platinum Rod. Don't get me wrong, the Platinum Rod actually is still viable. It's just getting power crept at this point. And like, these 2 other rods have been out long enough. You probably should have them by now, or at least be working toward them. The Prunus Lamina is by far the more offensively oriented one, where the modifiers here, she essentially gets 35% added to her modifier as opposed to the 15% of the Magistral Rod. That being said, the magic stat here of 170 versus what you might have in your Prunus if you're using the aim build per se, it's a fair amount more magic, so she will still hit hard, just not as hard, but will heal more because it'll be a higher magic stat, but even then, probably not materially so, just because her healing is already so good. That being said, the Evocation gauge boost here of 30, it's hard to quantify this because nobody knows. It's actually not data mined yet exactly that formula for how it fills up. But the testing, long story short, is that like if you were to use a full party of everyone using this rod, you essentially get the Esper 30% quicker. So if you're using it only on Yuna, it's not like 30% quicker, maybe 10% quicker. But when you are talking about like really long battles of sustain, you're going to eventually be summoning your Esper because the battle's going to go on for so long. And there's a significant advantage to getting your Esper off before the enemy team for like 2 or 3 turns, because those Esper buffs are usually status effects, imperils to certain elements, 30 to 50% buffs to attack or magic. So like, there is some kind of strategy there where hypothetically you trade off a little bit of the offensive potency in the endeavor to get your Esper a lot quicker and turn the tide toward the end of the battle. So that's Yuna in a nutshell. You know, you can kind of see the strength of the sustain here, where re-raise, full life, healing potency, Aeon Bond to heal herself. There's so much in terms of versatility for attacks, where both strong, you know, single unit attacks and AoE potential. She's bulky in her HP pool, as well as her, you know, potential area resistance and unit resistance based upon the Bahamut Vision card and her adjustability. So much to like about her. There are ways to essentially burst her down, because she's not a perfect, she's not perfect. Like, the negative weapon resistance matter, and you can't gear for every kind of weapon resistance. It's just right now in the maps that we're currently seeing in PvP, she's just exceptionally strong, particularly when you talk about the other cast of light units, where Sakura is seeing a great rise to power, and like El Sorel still has a really good place. Warrior of Light is still a great tank. So yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys have, you know, those have pulled are enjoying her. There's still a lot to still, you know, learn as the game evolves and new metas change and new cards are released and whatnot, but feel free to share your experiences so far, corrections, concerns, things you want to see. But all in all, if you wanted to pull for her, good luck, I hope you did. If you wanted to pull for Bahamut to go with her, good luck, I hope you did. It makes a huge difference. But all in all, I'm looking forward to doing more content for her, as well as all of you, and hopefully talk to you all soon. So thanks for watching.